Lighten up.
Yep.
I'm Dave Palumbo, founder of Species Nutrition. From my earliest bodybuilding days, I believed in only putting the best in my body. And that lives on in the Species Nutrition line of products. I put my name and reputation on every bottle of Species Nutrition products. If you want to be your absolute best, join the evolution.
Hey guys, we're super excited to be here at the LA Fit Expo. It's our third year in a row. And what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be launching the Tasty Pastry. It's a low-carb Pop-Tart. It's got 3 to 4 grams of net carbs. And we love this show. This is our best place to be in LA.
RX Television on rxmuscle.com. This is Ask Dave, better known as hashtag Ask Dave, your 30-minute question and answer show with Dave Palumbo. Whatever's on your mind, bodybuilding, non-bodybuilding, it is all on the table. Yesterday's episode of After Hours, we went live yesterday, and there was a reason that we went live yesterday. For many weeks consecutively, that episode kept getting flagged. I'm not going to mention the entity because we are on set entity. But we figured we'd try something a little different this time around. We would go live. We did momentarily get flagged, but we resolved everything. But again, if you watched yesterday's episode of After Hours Live, if you enjoyed the whole live environment, comment below if that's something that you prefer going forward. And that's the format we will go with Tuesday at approximately 2 p.m. Eastern. As we now bring in Dave Palumbo. Dave, we were just talking about this off camera. This upcoming weekend, we have the IFBB Open class, division rolls on Legions. And, one of the interesting names in it is someone we didn't know if we would see him again on stage this year. There was word that he was not going to compete at the Olympia this year, but we are going to see him on stage this weekend in his own words. And that's Justin Rodriguez.
Yeah, which is kind of weird because he said he wasn't going to do the Olympia. And then he's doing this show, which I'm assuming is to qualify for the Olympia. So, I mean, I guess he changed his mind.
Hey, what's the cutoff? What's the cutoff for this upcoming Olympia?
That's a good question. I don't know. I forget what the last show. We might be into next season already. I don't even, to be honest with you, I'm not even sure if this is a qualifier for this Olympia. I would think it would be. I mean, we're only in early October now, but I think that because it's such a long season this year. Remember, usually the Olympia is done by now. So, I mean, it's such a long season that I think a lot of guys who figured they'd wait for next year, for them, it almost feels like next year already. So they want to hit that Olympia, I guess. If I were Justin, I would have just waited for the Arnold Classic, to be honest with you. But, there might be other motivations there that we aren't aware of. Maybe it's sponsors, and maybe he just didn't want to sit back and watch the Olympia from the sidelines.
No, it is an interesting point because we're talking about only 3 years ago that right around now, October, we'd be in the post-Olympia tour, right? We'd be, in the European shows, it is a different dynamic. And I don't know over the course of the next few years, if that timeline is going to move back into the fall or if we're going to be stationed in between November and December for the Olympia and everything anchored around that. Let's go to the questions. The first 2 questions on the show, of course, from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. First question, how do you know when to increase volume of training and increase food to ensure optimal results?
First of all, the Dave Palumbo Experience app, for those of you who don't know, is an app you can download. It's $29 a month. Basically, you get me as your coach in your pocket. So sign into the app. All my videos and articles that I've ever written are all in one place. It's like a little library for all my information. We put up a workout every single week up there. All my protocols are up there. My diets are up there. And we do a Q&A every week on there. Well, actually, I answer questions every day in the open forum. So everyone sees everyone's questions, everyone's answers. I pick the best questions, and I do a Q&A video, kind of like an extra Ask Dave every week just for the app. So this question is coming from one of the app members, and they wanted to know, what is it again, Sid?
No, I guess what are the telltale signs that you would know to increase volume of training and increase food. I mean, it says ensure optimal results, but I guess that's, fairly vague in terms of objectives.
It's interesting. I just interviewed Lee Haney, and that interview will be up probably next week. And Lee and I were talking about why he looked so good in his last Olympia outing. And let's face it, Lee could have kept going. Lee was 31 years old when he retired, and he already had 8 Olympias. That's pretty incredible. And I said, you look so good. Was it the fact that Dorian was pushing you, in that 91 Olympia, you knew he was coming in and that you had to be bigger? And he's like, Dave, Dorian never even factored into me. I was the reigning champ. No one was going to beat me. He's like, I just cut my volume back. I was doing a lot of training. I was doing double workouts. I was training 6 days a week before that. And I felt like I was just over depleting myself. And so I cut back my volume to going on I think he was on a 3-on-1 off, 3-on-1 off. So he would train each body. I guess he would train, you get 2 days a week off, which is what a lot of guys today do. And Haney was always a big, stimulate, don't annihilate. That was his saying. And so he believed in stimulating that muscle, get out of the gym, eat, and I think that that's something that a lot of people should take notice of, because I noticed a lot of more people going back to higher volume training. And I think it's just overtraining people. And I think people are trying to overcome the overtraining by taking more drugs. And that's just not, your body can only recover so fast. It doesn't matter if it has extra drugs in it. Okay. You start taxing the nervous system when you overtrain. And that's what Lee was saying. And then the muscles just don't want to work anymore. So you could take all the drugs you want, for recovery, but if you can't actually put out a maximum effort in the gym, you're not going to get back a maximum results, so to speak. So I don't like to increase volume at all, or increase, the amount I do, especially going into a show, because when you're going into a show, you actually have less resources to repair your body, right? Because you're eating less food, so you can lose stored body fat, ostensibly. You're doing cardio now, so now you're actually not going to recover as well because you're actually doing more exercise. So it's a big mistake, I think, to increase volume. As far as increasing food, even in the off season, I think that might be the question on how to grow and stuff like that. I would increase food when I don't see gains coming anymore. So if I have a client who sends me an update and everything else is solid, but the scale's not moving, then I have to up their food. And then I have to decide, do I want to up protein, fat, or carbs? And depending on how many they're eating and what I've increased in the past, that will dictate what I usually go protein first. If that doesn't work, and they look a little flat, I'll increase carbs. If that doesn't work, then I say, well, maybe they're not getting enough fat in their diet. Sometimes people, when they get their carbs higher, they'll cut back their fat because it's harder to eat all that food. And that's why I tell people the best way to get fat into your meals is to use like my macadamia nut oil or extra virgin olive oil. I think mac oil tastes better, but you could just kind of mix it into your foods and you don't even know you're eating it. And that will boost calories too. So it's really based on performance. I wouldn't just knee jerk increase things like volume of training or food intake if you're growing adequately, and I think that that's a mistake that people make also, just by, I have to increase. No, you don't have to increase anything. If you're seeing results, don't increase anything. Wait till the results come to a plateau and then increase.
Second question, again, from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. I'm taking a small cycle, 300 tests, 100 deca. I'm growing, but should I keep the approach of growing with minimal effective dosage, or until I stop growing? Then I have room to level everything up, or should I increase now?
Yeah, it's interesting because I just said, don't increase your food until you see like you're not gaining anymore. But with drugs, sometimes when you're at very lower, some guys will just start with like almost like a hormone replacement dose. And of course you'll put weight on initially from anything if you've been off cycle. But if you're not taking an effective dose, okay, or maximum effective dose, you're definitely you're going to limit your gains. So I probably, for a drug cycle, would not follow my food advice. I would go right to an effective dosage. So if I know 1,000 milligrams per week of testosterone is ideal for building muscle with the least amount of side effects, I'm not going to start off at 500 milligrams of testosterone a week. I'm going to go right to 1,000. Plus, it's going to take 3 weeks before all that stuff gets in your system anyway. So, yeah, with drugs, you should go to your effective dosages that work for your body and that are tried and true. Like I said, I mean, if you're just a beginner and you don't really care and you just want to put a couple of pounds of muscle on, you could do 500 milligrams of test a week and 200 milligrams of deca, and you'll probably grow. But if you're a competitive athlete, who's trying to reach an elite level and you want to be on effective dosages, when you start your cycle, go to your effective dosages. That's the right way to do it.
Let's go to our Instagram questions. Again, if you're not already following us on Instagram, the handle is official_RX Muscle. If you're watching us for the first time here on YouTube, we welcome you. We ask that you subscribe below, hit the notification bell. You're not going to miss any of our show segments, updates. We go live every Sunday night with Heavy Muscle Radio, Dave Palumbo, Chris Aceto, and then a rotating cast of characters between John Romano, Lee Priest. We sometimes will have special guests on that episode as well. But then also Monday afternoon, we now go live with our new show, Iron Therapy. It's a show based around mental health and some of the mental aspects that high-performance athletes and in particular bodybuilders have to go through to achieve success. So it's a really new format that we're trying out. It's one that has received great feedback, and it's one that we hope you will watch and certainly take something positive from it as well.
And we have a really good one coming up too, Sid. Don't forget.
Oh, yeah. We were going to tease this throughout the course of the week, but we'll let the cat out of the bag now. Rich Piana's brother joined us. So we pre-taped this, full disclosure. Ryan Piana joined us a couple of days ago. We pre-taped it, so it's going to be live. Well, we're going to set it live this upcoming Monday. But it's a really unique behind-the-scenes, really never before told behind-the-scenes look into the life of Rich Piana, sort of the upbringing of Rich Piana, how everything kind of turned into him becoming, ultimately the icon that he was in the fitness industry, the personality, the character, and really for Ryan and Rich's family, getting through the grieving process. Obviously, we lost Rich in 2017.
5 years ago. Can you believe it?
5 years ago, amazingly enough. But
I thought it was 2 years ago. Yeah, I thought it was like 2 years. I said to him,
no.
When did Rich die? 2 years ago? He's like, it's been 5 years. I said,
5 years, yeah. No, I mean, it was not too long, after the passing of Dallas McCarver. Right. And I just remember we went into that Olympia weekend because it was shortly thereafter, and just talking about how much we were missing. Obviously, what someone as large as life as a Dallas McCarver, someone who you figured was going to be on that stage for many, many years to come. And then Rich Piana, that any fitness expo that you ever went to, you saw that massive long line around the building, and that was for Rich Piana and the 5% boots. So obviously larger than life personality. So you're going to hear a never before heard perspective from his brother on Iron Therapy next week. And again, that show, we generally go live this upcoming Monday, is going to be taped. But then also yesterday, we did After Hours live. So again, with the entire Whack Pack, you now have a chance to partake in the program as well. Ask anyone anything live, whatever.
Which is scary. Yeah,
it is scary, but it's a
scary
lot of
show
fun.
Because you never know what anyone's going to say on that show. So live is definitely risky on that one.
It's fun. It's risky, but you know what? It's the kind of thing that it's one of those shows where we have not only just, I want to say, a built-in audience, but it's also one where, for instance, if we don't upload it properly on time on Tuesday, and again, for the reasons we've mentioned, in regards to getting flagged, we will have people messaging us, where is After Hours? How come After Hours is not up? So again, we're going to test out this new format to go live. We encourage your live participation or whatever. It's always a good time. So again, if you haven't already done so, subscribe, hit notification bell. If you like what you're watching, hit the like button. As always, we appreciate all of your support all year long. So I'm going to ask a couple of species related questions because we do get these questions fairly often now. CREALYZE and STIMULYZE, when can we expect them back on shelves?
STIMULYZE is on the shelf, so that we have. That's not a problem. It's the CREALYZE that.
I'm sorry, LIPOLYZE.
Oh yeah, LIPOLYZE is available at dpsnutrition.com. They still have some stock of it, so you can get it there, guys. I know a lot of people have been asking about that. I've been sending my clients there, but we'll have it in like 2 weeks. That was just it's a different manufacturer. They're a pain in the neck sometimes, but and there's some ingredients in there that are hard to get. So that will be out in 2 weeks. CREALYZE, what I made a decision, actually my wife and I made an executive decision. We said, you know what? If China, because that's where everyone gets creatine, okay? Even though the people say we got German creatine, the Germans buy it from China. So everything comes from China. If the Chinese are going to charge, 8 times the normal price on CREALYZE, on creatine monohydrate, so to speak, and I have to raise my cost to you guys 5, 6, 7 times too, to me, it's not even worth selling it. You know what? Get it from someone else. I don't want to look like a price gouger, even though it's just me being charged more by my manufacturer. They're gouging us. There's no reason why this product should be that expensive. The problem is getting it over here and dealing with the Chinese government to get this stuff shipped over here. So there's a shortage, and whenever there's a shortage, with the demand, the price goes up, right? So as soon as the shortage is over, the price will go right back down. So I'll just wait, and then when the price goes down, we'll start making creatine again, because I don't negotiate with terrorists. They're basically it's a terrorist action. Oh, you want creatine? Okay, you're gonna have to pay this much. The stuff is not worth that much. Okay, for me to pay more than retail price, on creatine monohydrate, and then have to charge 5 times that to the marketplace, I'm not interested in doing that. So I just decided we're not going to sell that for now, and we'll sell our other products when stuff comes down into a normal price range. We'll sell it again, and that's where we're at with that. And you'll notice if you go on Amazon or any of the websites and look at some of the companies that are still selling it, the price is very, very high, unless they had leftover, which at this point I think everyone's used up their leftover. So the prices are just super high on creatine these days.
Let's go to some serious bodybuilding related questions from Gym Rat Ryan. When will you have Big Lenny back on the show?
Big Lenny, right? I love Big Lenny. He's welcome on the show anytime he wants. And what I do with the after hour show is that I rotate, basically. So what I do is I decide, what I think might be interesting to put on the show and showcase for that week, or it's usually, we're like a mini series. It's usually not just 1 week. It's usually like 6 weeks of shows. And then what I'll do is, when I feel like people are getting burnt out on what we're doing, it's really when I get burnt out on it, and then I switch to something else. We had Big Rob on for a while. He decided to become a lunatic, so we parted, as friends. That's it. He was off. This past 2 weeks, we had to deal with the Leo longevity issue, because a lot of guys wanted to talk about it on the panel. So we did that. Next week we're back to the Bull. Jimmy the Bull has some crazy stories about, going up to the rock quarries up in New York State. He almost died. So we'll probably that'll be a Jimmy the Bull week. And, we've had our Big Lenny weeks. We had the Big Lenny versus Mr. G fight, issue that was going on for about 5 or 6 weeks for a little bit. So yeah, if Lenny's ready to come back on, I know Lenny's health wasn't doing so good. I think he's doing better now. I like to get him down every so often to get an update on what he's been up to and what he's doing. We all like him a lot. We care about him. We don't want to see anything happen to him. So, but he is interesting and funny, and he's got a good sense of humor. And so, yeah, we'll get him back on. Like I said, I kind of cycle all the different characters. Actually, we've been getting Armand Adibi's been coming on the last couple of weeks too, and he's got some good topics he wants to talk about. I know Guru Amin was on this past week. He wants to come back and talk about science stuff. So I'm always rotating depending on what the latest and the greatest is in the industry. So that's how pretty much we deal with it.
Let's go to Marky Mars. Won't the lack of a PCT regenerate the receptors faster, especially if you're coming on again in 10 to 12 weeks? Lee Priest, as he mentioned the example of, never did a PCT.
The reason you do PCT or post-cycle therapy is because when you go off, and once again, the idea of turning your body back on doesn't seem like it really is meaningful, because if you're going to go back on a cycle, like you said, in 8 weeks, what's the big deal? You're going to shut yourself down again anyway. But what I find, and I think what a lot of people find, is that when you turn your pituitary and your testicles back on, they start producing testosterone, even if it's not at a high amount, and they start producing sperm down there in your testicles, your sex drive really returns. It's like reinvigorating your sex drive a little bit, because if you just stop cold turkey, you have nothing. Your testosterone zero. Testosterone zero versus testosterone of 250, okay, which might be on PCT, or sometimes it's higher. Okay, there's a big difference between that. One is nothing, you're a woman, and one is you have something, you're just low. And I think that's important to at least have the low. Now, the good thing is that you'll regenerate those androgen receptors at a low level just as much as you would on nothing. So there's no reason to be on nothing. And that's the reason, Now, Lee never used high dosages of stuff, and he never stayed on for long periods of time. So when he would stop a cycle, it probably wasn't as dramatic to his to his pituitary endocrine system, as it would be if you're taking, 2,000, 3,000 milligrams of gear per week. So if you're doing that, which is what most people are doing, at least 2,000, right? 1,000 tests, taking 600 deca, equipoise, something like that, and maybe a couple other good things for good measure, GH. You want to at least have something that's going to kickstart your body a little bit. Some people take HCG the entire cycle while they're on the cycle, in which case, if they just stop cold turkey, it probably wouldn't matter because their bodies have been producing small amounts anyway during the whole time. To me, it's a waste of money to take HCG an entire cycle because it's not adding anything to the cycle, But some people psychologically, they feel like it gives them a better sex drive when they're on a cycle. I don't know why anyone wouldn't have an insane sex drive on a cycle anyway. I always did. But that's just the way some people feel. So I always did my cycle. After the cycle, I did the conventional 2 weeks of HCG, 2 weeks of Clomid, 4 weeks off nothing. Sometimes I would actually stay off an additional 6 or 8 weeks, depending on what the cycle was like the year before that, and then go back on. And you know what? You could say, well, what about this or what about that? I'm just telling you what I established worked best for me, over my career. I've tried everything, and I just felt like that protocol worked the best at regenerating my receptors, cleaning me out, and making me feel functional during my off period. And so, you don't have to follow it. I'm just, like I said, I have a lot of experience. I've been doing this a long time. So if I can impart to you what worked well for me, then hopefully that will, help you guys moving forward.
And Salvino, your best advice you can give a first-time competitor on the day of the show. He's looking forward to, I guess, is going into his first show, looking forward to seeing all the work that he's put into. So your best advice, first-time competitor on show day.
Be prepared. I think that's the number one thing. What a lot of people do is they go to the show and they don't know what they're doing. That's why it's good to have a coach, especially for your very first show, so that you know all the little pitfalls of what to do with. Like, a lot of people don't know, you shouldn't really be backstage pumping up for an hour. Or what happens is you deplete all your glycogen out of the muscle, and then you look flat on stage. So I tell guys, just pose backstage. Just pose. If you want to do a couple push-ups, fine. Don't start doing weights and pumping and all that stuff. These people watch Pumping Iron with Arnold, and they think you got to pump up for 3 hours before a show. You don't look good when you do that. Trust me. Hire a professional spray tanner so that you don't have to worry about, is your tan going to look good or not, Back in the day, we had to do our own tan. It sucked. You had to sit in the room and paint the stuff on, let it dry, standing in front of fans. It was horrible. Nowadays you guys have it lucky. It's 10 minutes. You get spray tanned the night before, you get spray tanned the morning of, you're done. Make sure you got a custom suit. People like CJ's Elite. CJ and I have been friends for 30 years, and she does great custom suits. They're very reasonably priced, especially for the men. I know the women's suits can get crazy depending on how many crystals and stuff that you put on that, but get a professional suit made. Don't just look for something off the rack, so to speak, or don't buy someone's used suit or something like that. Get something that's made to your measurements. I can't stress that enough. Polish on stage, looking polished is going to really make a big impression on the judges. If you're a woman, pay someone to do your makeup and your hair. Okay. I guarantee you will look like a supermodel on stage. Unless you're a professional makeup artist yourself, you're never going to be able to do what some of these makeup artists can do. I remember I was dating this girl. She actually became my wife at one point, and before we got separated and divorced back in the late 90s. But we went to she did a photo shoot with Flex magazine, and this is before like people were doing hair and makeup for competing, and she was in there for 2.5 hours. I was like, what the hell are they doing in there? She came out. I didn't even recognize her. I thought it was. I thought it was another woman who came out of there. I did not recognize her. They did such an incredible job. She looked like a supermodel with the professional makeup and hair. And you know what? After she had that done, every time she competed, she always hired. Actually, she was using the same woman. Actually, she would hire that same woman because she would go to all the big shows. I know Monica Brandt used her and all the top girls at the time. And because she would make these girls look gorgeous. I mean, and it makes a big impression on the judges when you look like a professional up there on that stage. So be professional. Don't cheap out. If you can't afford to do the show the right way, don't do the show at all. That's my suggestion.
M said, besides ground beef, what are your favorite leanest red meat options during a cut or prep?
I'm a big top round guy. So I always liked London broil cut, which is top round. To me, it's the leanest cut of steak. I always hear people saying, especially back in the 90s, that, Romanian steak is the leanest cut, which is basically flank steak kind of. Not really. It's very chewy and fatty. I don't really like it that much. Sirloins are really kind of fatty too. Filet mignon has some fat in the meat, but you can trim off the excess fat. And I like fillets. I like top round. And then for people who just want to do like ground beef, you want to get 93% or leaner. If you can, nowadays they have probably even leaner than 93%, but 93% or leaner beef, or like bison, which is like buffalo. That's pretty good. That's usually what I recommend. Some people, like I said, like to make make little hamburgers out of them and stuff like that, or just kind of chop it up and mix it in their rice or their vegetables or whatever they happen to be eating, on their diet at that point. I did eat steak, quite a bit in my diet. Like I said, and I was basically a top round guy. You could throw that on the barbecue. You can make it in a pan. I would slice it up and weigh out the pieces, and I would just put them in Tupperware, and I would eat it, all throughout the day. But I don't really like the gristly taste of fat in my mouth anyway. But if you do like that, that's for off season. You don't want to be eating like a really gristly piece of meat, because there is a lot of fat in there, and that will definitely add a lot of extra calories that you probably just don't need on a contest diet. So that's something to consider for sure.
PMC Dow Fitness: how do Olympic athletes dope with nandrolone and 19 more without suppressing natural testosterone, since they can't use stuff like test and enanthate?
I don't think Olympic athletes use nandrolone compound. Nandrolone compounds have metabolites up to 18 months. So you could take a shot of deca now, and a year from now, you can still test positive. So there's no way any Olympic athletes are using nandrolone-based drugs. More than likely, people who are trying to beat drug tests are using fast-acting compounds. Now, test propionate, probably in and out of your system within a week. You could beat the test on that. Orals, Anavar, Dianabol, Winstrol, orals are in and out in like probably 48 to 72 hours. Probably if you stop them 2 weeks before a test, you would absolutely pass no problem. The good thing about orals too is that they can't get trapped in your tissues. If you take a shot of like Winstrol, okay, which is water-based, which should be in and out very quickly, but it gets trapped in the muscle or under the skin or in some fat, and it's slowly trickling into your system, you might fail a drug test a month after taking your last shot, even though it shouldn't theoretically be in your system, because it's trapped in the body. So if you're being tested, orals are probably a way better, safer way to go. I know a lot of the cyclists use testosterone patches. So they'll get off the bike, they'll put a patch on, they'll sleep with the patch on to help for recovery. They'll pull the patch off in the morning, they'll ride the next day, and then if they get tested after they ride, they usually come up clean, because the testosterone is not in their system that long. But meanwhile, they had the ability to heal overnight with the testosterone patch on. So there's a lot of different, shady methods that people use to beat tests. But, it's unfortunate that you have to do that type of stuff. And I'm glad that, as crazy as it sounds, I'm glad that in the bodybuilding world, at least in the organization that we compete in, they don't even test. So guys don't have to worry about that kind of stuff. Back in the day, Ben Weider was doing some testing for a little while in the 90, 91, I think, season around there. And then they did away with that. And then they went to diuretic testing a little bit and clenbuterol testing, and then they did away with that. So it just doesn't work for our sport, because our sport is based on performance enhancing compounds. And so all we can do is try to educate people to use them responsibly. And that's been my goal, at least.
Speaking of orals, difference between oral vitamin C and injectable. What is the ratio difference? For example, does 250 mg injectable have the same, say, 5 grams oral, etc.?
It's a good question, Sid. And you know what? I always tell people, if I don't know the answer to something, I say I don't know. I don't make shit up. I really don't know. I don't know how you would equate oral vitamin C with injectable vitamin C. It's impossible for me to come up with a ratio or formula of absorption versus one versus the other. I know some people do IV, vitamin C drips and stuff like that for cancer treatments. I think that now they have a liposomal vitamin C, which kind of is like a slow release vitamin C that's orally, usable. I've been trying it out from Life Extension just to see how I feel on it. The problem with vitamin C is you really don't know how you feel on it, because you don't really feel vitamin C. all you need to know is that humans have a need for vitamin C. We don't make it in our bodies. Whereas monkeys, okay, that whole class, apes, I think too, they can synthesize their own vitamin C. So they don't need to eat oranges. They can just eat leaves all day long, and it doesn't matter. But for us, we need to ingest vitamin C. You don't need to ingest a ton of it. Obviously, if you're sick or maybe you're recovering from some kind of an injury, increasing vitamin C is always a good idea, because vitamin C makes up collagen and connective tissue. So usually, if I tell people if they get hurt or they're sick, to bump your vitamin C to 1,000 milligrams per day up to I usually do maintenance 500 milligrams per day. But if you get sick or you injure yourself, you can go up to 3,000 milligrams per day, and that's pretty good. If you start getting higher than that, you start getting diarrhea from the stuff, and it can act like a diuretic on your body, which can dehydrate you, which you don't necessarily want to do when you're trying to, recover from an injury. So, like I said, 500 maintenance, 3,000 milligrams per day when necessary, and I think that works well. And you can experiment with the liposomal versus the regular. The regular is a lot cheaper, just getting regular, ascorbic acid, vitamin C. But once again, vitamin C is vitamin C. So, at the end of the day, it all works.
Speaking of supplementation, multivitamins, questions from Nick Svolkovs. How can you tell, again, telltale signs, if multivitamin and mineral supplements are actually being absorbed and working?
That's another tough one. It's hard for us to know as people taking the supplements if they are absorbed. You can go for blood work. They could test your minerals and your vitamin levels in your blood. I don't know how accurate it is. I will tell you this, that chelated minerals that are bound to amino acids, are tremendously have more efficiency at absorption than minerals that are bound to salts, which is mostly what we see. In Demineralize, we use all chelated minerals. The reason the chelated minerals are better is because they're bound to amino acids. So when they go into the stomach, that's where protein digestion occurs first, or where it starts. Those minerals get cleaved and get absorbed right through the stomach lining, so they get absorbed quicker. Whereas other minerals that are bound to salts have to get into the small intestine before they're really absorbed. And sometimes they don't even get absorbed because they can cross-link with each other and inhibit each other's absorption rate. So that's one thing you want to look for. Secondly, you want to look for vitamins that have effective dosages. So if you're taking a multivitamin like a Centrum or something like that, or one a day, and it has every vitamin in there listed on the bottle, but you're taking one pill, it's probably nothing's an effective dosage. They're kind of just sprinkling a little bit of everything in there so they can say it's in there and telling you it's 100% of the RDA, which is meaningless for a bodybuilder, because the RDA is based on a person laying in a hospital bed, the bare minimum they need not to have, not to die, essentially. So that's not really relevant to us as bodybuilders. We need a lot more, because we're basically engaging in a lot more chemical reactions throughout the day, from fat oxidation, carbohydrate metabolism, protein synthesis. We need a really high amount. So I've done a lot of research, and that's why our V-Mineralize vitamin mineral formula is a very, very popular, well-selling vitamin. Yes, it's 10 pills a day, 5 pills twice a day, but you're getting everything that you need, and you really don't need to supplement with anything else. Now, if you want to take a little extra vitamin D3, I usually recommend an extra 5,000 units of vitamin D3, because we only have 2,000 units in there. And if you like to take vitamin K, which seems to be the newest, thing, because vitamin K seems to direct the calcium to the right places, away from the blood vessels into the bones. That's something you can add as a separate vitamin as well, because vitamin K is expensive. If I added that to V-Mineralize, it would jack the price up like $5 per bottle. So I didn't want to do that. And but aside from that, it's a pretty complete vitamin mineral mix. Plus, it's also got blueberry extract and lycopene in there, which we know is the fruit and vegetable polyphenolics are really, really good as far as being antioxidants and helping with recovery. So once again, you only have so much money to spend. So I try to make something that's a very potent type of multivitamin, multimineral, so that you can use one bottle and not have to have 6 bottles, in your house and guessing, am I taking the right amount? Am I taking effective dosages? Am I taking minerals that are actually absorbed? I kind of did took the guesswork out of it for you guys. And once again, it's a tough one, because vitamins don't make you feel a certain way. They prevent you from having problems. So if you're taking them, you should recover well. You shouldn't get sick as much. It's not like something you're going to take like a pre-workout and say, oh shit, I feel this stuff. Oh, I feel great. It must be working. It's a more of a very subtle type of effect on the body.
Let's go to B Winery. So we used to get questions often about waist trainers, but more so as far as the slimming effect. Well, this question is more so about waist trainers and belts. Wearing them during your workouts, will it make your core weaker?
That's like saying, wearing a weight belt during squats is going to make your core weaker. I mean, if you're squatting 600 pounds, I mean, do you want to risk blowing out your lower back because you're squatting 600 pounds, or do you want to protect it? So, when I would do my leg training and I would squat, I didn't wear a belt for the first couple warm-up sets. And then when I got heavier, I would put my belt on, to protect my back. Same thing with the waist trainer. I mean, when you're working out, you're really you shouldn't be wearing it super, super tight, because you won't be able to breathe. You won't be able to do your exercises. So when you wear these waist shapers that make you slim your waist, at night, you loosen them up a little bit because you want to be able to breathe while you're sleeping, obviously. And when you're training, you loosen them up a little bit. Every other time you have them on nice and tight, even when you're doing cardio, because you want to train the waist to get smaller. And they do work. It's like almost a little bit of torture training. I'm glad I never had to wear one back in the day, because that's all I needed was another neurotic thing to do to my body, right? But they do work. It's just when you're training, you're not going to be wearing it super tight anyway. And it doesn't give you as much support, I don't think, as a belt would, where you're cinching that belt really super crazy tight. And the reason you do that with a belt is because what you're doing is you're bearing down your abdominal muscles against the belt. You're pushing against the belt. So it's helping you to actually lift the weight better too. These waist shapers are not really doing that. They're just kind of keeping your waist, tight. And basically, so your body remodels itself into a different shape. It's kind of weird, It's like a body. It's like the people, you ever see these tribes in like New Guinea that put these rings around their neck, and they want to make their necks really long, and it works. Over time, their necks get stretched out, and that's because the body will respond to stresses put on it. So to answer the question, no, I don't think you're going to weaken your core by wearing a waist shaper during your workout. I just wouldn't wear it super tight.
Take a couple more questions. Kavanaugh lifting. Are you against a lifelong supplementation of T3, low, moderate dose, of course, as a means of keeping metabolism function constant? People like Jordan Peters are advocates of this.
If your thyroid gland works adequately, I think that it's smarter than you, meaning that the body's feedback loop, in other words, thyrotropic releasing hormone in the hypothalamus, which stimulates the pituitary to release thyroid stimulating hormone, which tells the thyroid gland to release T4, which then converts to T3, which is the active form, which then feeds back on the hypothalamus, telling it, okay, we got enough T3, slow down TSH production. Okay. That whole feedback loop is specifically designed for your body, meaning that my levels of T3, in my body are not going to be the same as Sid's levels of T3. It doesn't mean mine are going to be higher, because mine actually might be lower, because that's what my body dictates, because maybe my muscle machinery burns calories at a much higher or accelerated rate than Sid's does. So I don't need to have as much T3 in my body. In other words, your body's auto-regulating according to itself. If you start taking replacement therapy now, and you don't need it, okay? Now I have no thyroid gland. I have to take T4, but I take a dosage of T4. My body converts what it needs to T3, and my doctor based my dosage on the correct amount so that my TSH levels are low. That means that my TSH levels are low. It means that I'm getting enough T3. If my TSH levels are high, it's my body telling my thyroid gland that's not there, we need more T3. So initially, I felt good on the dosage he put me on, but my TSH was a little high. So he said, Dave, I'm going to give you a little bit more T4, let it convert to T3, and that's going to lower your TSH. And when your TSH gets down to a low level, we know that we've replaced you properly. And that's what he did. So my dosage, which is 200 micrograms per day, is different than my friend who's on replacement, and he's only at 150 micrograms of T4 per day. So everyone's body requires a different amount. So if you start taking active T3, and we do that for fat loss, during diets, because when we're dieting, a lot of times your body slows down T3 production. It keeps more inactive T4 because it wants to slow the metabolism down, because it realizes that your body is eating up body fat at an enormous rate. So we take T3 to override that. But if we take T3 all the time, it's going to be very hard to dose the person properly on what the right dose is. So you're going to have to keep trial and error. You're going to have to take blood work, see what your TSH is. And why would you want to do that when your body can auto-regulate itself already? I mean, assuming your thyroid gland works adequately and everything's normal, I wouldn't want to have to monitor that all the time. And you know that if these guys that are taking 75 micrograms or 50 micrograms a day of T3 continuously year-round, they're not going for blood work and checking their TSH levels on a regular basis to see if, am I taking too little, am I taking too much? Because once you start taking T3, your body's shutting its own production down. So now you've established a new set level of what you think, your thyroid function should be, and not what your body thinks. So I have a little bit of a problem with that, to do it on a 365 days a year basis. Pre-contest, absolutely. Then let your body reestablish its natural rhythm, because that's what works for you.
Take one more question from Robert Fitness Wellbeing. If Dorian Yates didn't retire in 1997, had no tricep injury, would Ronnie still have one in 1998?
Good question. I asked that to Dorian. Dorian said he would have beat Ronnie. And he went pose for pose why he would have beat him. And would he have? Possibly. I mean, if he was Mr. Olympia at his best still, no injury. We said no injuries, right? So no injuries, at his best, reigning Mr. Olympia, Ronnie probably would have finished second at that first Olympia. Because remember, Ronnie wasn't enormous at that Olympia. He looked amazing in the sense that he was in great shape and he had good proportion and everything like that. But he wasn't, 292-pound Ronnie. So I don't know. Once again, unless we saw them up on stage next to each other, you don't know. I asked Lee Haney, I said earlier in the show, if he would have beat Dorian Yates in 92, if he would have come back, and he said absolutely. Now, I didn't ask him if he would have beaten him in 93. Well, that's when Dorian was ridiculous looking. So I don't know. It would have been interesting. I think that it would have been a very good battle, and I think we would have all loved to have seen that. But I think, as the reigning Mr. Olympia, if Dorian would have been perfect, he probably would have emerged victorious, even if a lot of the fans might have thought that Ronnie or Flex Wheeler should have won. But unfortunately, we never got to see that. So it's only speculation at this point.
That's going to do for this episode of Ask Dave. Reminder, all new episodes of After Hours and Heavy Muscle Radio, as well as our brand new show, Iron Therapy, on the channel tomorrow. All new episode of Iron Rage with Lee Priest. And then next week, a couple of special episodes. We have Lee Haney. Dave asked him a bunch of questions. So we may release it in one upload, or we might slice it up depending on, content over the course of the next few days. And then, of course, a special episode of Iron Therapy next week. The brother of Rich Piana, Ryan Piana, really never before heard his perspective on the life, the upbringing, and basically the whole story of Rich Piana. So you're not going to want to miss that one. If you haven't done so, subscribe below, hit the notification bell. You're not going to miss anything that we have going up on the channel, uploaded or live. For Dave Palumbo, I'm Sadiq Faruqi.
I have one more thing I want to say, Sid. I don't want you guys to miss. I assume we're probably going to be putting it up on Friday. Our interview with the Viking, Josh Maley, who just turned pro, the tallest Viking pro, 6'7" or 6'6". Yeah. He won the Arnold UK Amateur, and then he jumped in the pro show. Nice guy, 300 pounds ripped. Super good interview. That's going to go up probably in the end of the week as well. So
yes, so that will go up on Friday. So we have a packed schedule over the course of the next few days. Again, subscribe below, hit the notification bell. Anything that we have going up, you're not going to miss any of our live segments. You're not going to miss anything. You're going to be able to partake. For Dave Palumbo, I'm Steve Faruqi. We'll see you next time.